She told herself she didn't care anymore. 8 months since the rejection. 8 months since Davian Core looked at her like she was something he'd outgrown and said, "You're not enough." Not, "I don't love you," but, "You're not enough." Like she was a deficit, a shortage, a thing that couldn't be fixed. 8 months. And she'd survived. She made herself quiet. Unremarkable. It was easier that way. People didn't notice what didn't move. But tonight was different. Tonight, Davian was introducing his new companion to the Bloodmont court, the woman he'd chosen instead. Poised, elegant. From a family whose name opened doors Seraphine Vale couldn't even see. Everything she wasn't. She stood near the eastern alcove during the Harvest Moon reception. Bodies moved past her without pausing. She'd learned to occupy the margins of rooms, to exist in peripheral vision, to never draw focus. She almost believed she'd healed, until she saw him touch the other woman's wrist, the way he never touched her. Her chest constricted, her pulse dormant for months, quickened. Not in yearning, in something raw, shame, fury, the kind that festered in silence and left marks no one could see. She turned toward the exit, and then she felt it. The pressure of someone's attention, steady, intentional, inescapable. She lifted her eyes. Caspian Thorn stood across the gallery, Alpha Prime of the Nightfall territory, untouchable, dangerous, wanted by everyone bold enough to crave what they couldn't possess. If you're listening right now, help me prove something wrong. My mother once said I'd never reach 1,000 subscribers, but I believe stories like this, the quiet ones, the forbidden ones, the ones that burn slowly in the dark, deserve to be heard. Subscribe to Midnight Alpha Stories and help turn whispered tales into something that can't be ignored. Now, let's continue. He wasn't observing the presentation. He wasn't watching Davian. He was watching her. Her breath stalled. Her heartbeat stuttered. Something dormant inside her stirred, cautious, uncertain, awake. She should look away. She knew she should look away. She didn't. His expression shifted. Not quite a smile. Something heavier. Something that felt like warning and promise tangled together. And Seraphine Vale understood. She'd spent 8 months learning to disappear. But he saw her anyway. She knew what this was. Curiosity. Powerful men noticed broken things when they were bored. She'd learned that lesson once. She wouldn't learn it again. But her body didn't care about lessons. Something inside her responded, primal, involuntary. And when Caspian started moving, crossing the room, the crowd separating like he carried gravity, her feet stayed rooted. Leave, her mind warned. Stay, something deeper begged. He stopped in front of her. Close enough that she felt the heat radiating from him. Close enough that his scent, cedar and rain and something darker, wrapped around her like a claim she hadn't agreed to. "You were leaving," he said. Not a question, a statement, an observation. Like he'd been watching her long enough to know her tells, to read the exact moment she'd decided to flee. That should frighten her. It did frighten her. But something in her didn't move. She forced herself to meet his eyes, amber, sharp, predatory. And beneath all that control, something she didn't expect. Interest, real interest. Not the kind that wanted to consume, the kind that wanted to know. "I was," she said, her voice steadier than her pulse. "Stay." One word. A command dressed as invitation. She felt Davian's gaze burning into her shoulders, felt the weight of judgment from every titled wolf in the room, felt the familiar instinct to apologize, to shrink, to vanish. But Caspian extended his hand, and Seraphine Vale, the invisible woman, the insufficient one, the person who'd learned to survive by occupying no space, realized something. She was exhausted. Exhausted from being quiet, exhausted from being careful, exhausted from letting fear choose for her. His hand hung between them, an offering, a test, a risk. She looked at it, then at him, and she wondered, What would it feel like to be seen? What would it cost her to find out? She couldn't stop touching the mark. It sat just above her collarbone, a silver trace the size of a fingerprint, small enough that most people never noticed. But she felt it. Always. The physical reminder of the day Davian Core looked at her and chose someone else. 8 months ago, the bond had sparked between them. She'd felt it like lightning in her chest. Recognition, belonging, home. For 3 perfect weeks, she'd believed she was chosen, that someone finally saw her worth. Then Alara Windstrom walked into his life, poised, beautiful, connected to every council family that mattered. Everything Seraphine wasn't. Davian had pulled Seraphine aside after a gathering, his face carefully blank. "You're not enough," he'd said. "Not, I don't want you. Not, I love someone else. You're not enough." Like she was a deficit he couldn't overcome, like worth was quantifiable and she'd been measured short. When an alpha rejects a forming bond, it doesn't just break, it scars. The silver mark appeared the next morning. Small, permanent. A brand of insufficiency she'd carry forever. She'd learned something that day. When someone shows you you're disposable, believe them. The first time. "You're up early," Seraphine spun. Morel Holt stood at the garden entrance, older, sharp-eyed, former council member who'd retired years ago but still saw everything. "Couldn't sleep," Seraphine said. Morel's gaze swept over her, knowing. "The Prime is watching you." "I know." "Do you know why?" Morel moved closer, voice dropping. "Men like Caspian don't chase. They claim, and you, girl, look like something that needs saving." The words hit like ice water, because Morel was right. She had been waiting to be saved, first by Davian, believing his bond would make her valuable, now by Caspian, hoping his attention would heal her. But no one saves you. They just choose whether to watch you drown or offer a hand. And even then, you still have to swim. "Maybe I don't want to be saved," Seraphine said quietly. Morel's expression softened. "Good. Because he can't save you. He can only choose to stay while you save yourself." She left just as Caspian appeared. He carried another parcel. Food again. He sat beside her on the stone bench without asking permission, close enough that his warmth seeped into her skin. "You didn't sleep," he said. "How would you know?" He tapped his chest. "I feel you. The bond is forming. You feel it too." She did. Gods, she did. A thread pulling taut between them. Something in her recognized him, wanted him desperately. But her mind remembered Davian, remembered that bonds could fracture, that chosen could become discarded. "I'm not him," Caspian said, reading her silence. "Everyone says that." "I know." He turned to face her fully. His hand rose, hesitated, then brushed her hair back from her face. Tender, possessive. "But I mean it. I don't reject what's mine. I don't replace when something better appears. I choose once, permanently." Her chest ached. "You haven't chosen me yet." "Haven't I?" His thumb traced her jaw. "I'm here. I keep coming back. I'm waiting for you to catch up." "What if I can't?" The words broke free, raw, honest. "What if I'm too broken to risk it again?" His eyes held hers. "Then I wait longer." He stood, started to walk away. Again, always giving her space to breathe, to think, to choose. But this time he paused, looked back. "I won't force the bond, Seraphine. It has to be your choice, freely given. But know this," his voice dropped, "I don't give up, and I don't leave. So take your time, decide if you can trust me, but I'll be here when you do." He left. She sat alone in the garden as dawn light spilled over the mountains. Her hand drifted to the mark on her collarbone, felt the old wound ache. Caspian wasn't Davian. She knew that. Felt it in every patient gesture, every time he walked away instead of demanding. But knowing and trusting were different things. She was about to choose, accept the bond, and risk being destroyed again. Or walk away and spend the rest of her life wondering what if. Either way, the choice would change everything. Seraphine stood outside the council chamber, heart hammering. She shouldn't be here. Low ranks weren't permitted in council meetings, but a servant had delivered Caspian's message this morning. Your presence is requested, not demanded. Requested. She pushed open the heavy doors. Every head turned. 20 pairs of eyes tracked her entrance, some curious, most contemptuous. She felt the weight of their judgment like hands pressing down on her shoulders. Ilara Winstrom sat 3 chairs from the head of the table, beautiful, poised, and absolutely furious. Caspian sat at the head reviewing documents. He didn't look up, didn't acknowledge her. But the chair beside him, the only empty chair, sat waiting. An invitation, a statement, a test. She could sit, claim that space beside the Alpha Prime in front of everyone who'd ever dismissed her. Or she could stand against the wall with the other low ranks, safe, invisible. The old her would stand, but the old her was exhausted. Seraphine walked to the chair, sat down. Ilara's jaw tightened. The meeting proceeded. Trade agreements, border disputes. Seraphine understood maybe half of it, but she sat straight, kept her expression neutral, refused to shrink. Halfway through, Ilara's voice cut across the table. Forgive my curiosity. Her smile was poison sweet. But what exactly qualifies you to sit at this table, Seraphine? You have no rank, no family, no value. The room went silent. Seraphine felt it rise, the old shame, the urge to apologize, to disappear, to prove Ilara right by making herself small again. She looked at Caspian, waited for him to defend her. He didn't, just watched, patient, curious. And, she understood, he was giving her the choice, fight for herself, or let him do it. Seraphine turned to face Ilara. You're right, she said clearly. I have no rank, no family, no title, but I'm still here. Which means the Prime sees something you don't. She paused. Maybe that's what scares you. Ilara's face flushed. Caspian didn't react, didn't praise her, just continued the meeting as if nothing had happened. But under the table his hand found hers, squeezed once, a silent acknowledgement. He let her fight her own battle. Didn't save her, didn't silence Ilara for her. And somehow that respect meant more than protection ever could. The meeting ended. Seraphine stood to leave, adrenaline still buzzing through her veins. Ilara caught her in the hallway. Enjoy it while it lasts, she said, voice low and vicious. He'll get bored. Men like him always do. And when he does, you'll go back to being nothing. I'll make sure of it. Seraphine met her gaze. Maybe, but I was nothing before he noticed me, and I survived that too. Ilara's smile turned cold, knowing. You think you're the first low rank he's played with? She leaned closer. Ask him about Nissa. Ask him what happened to the last girl who thought she was special. The name hit like ice water. Nissa. Seraphine didn't know the story, but she felt the threat, the implication. Ilara walked away, leaving Seraphine standing alone in the empty corridor. Her mind raced. Something inside her whined uncertainty. Was Caspian different? Or was she repeating the same mistake with a different face? Was patience just another form of manipulation? Was restraint just strategy? She'd trusted Davian, and he'd destroyed her. What if trusting Caspian destroyed her worse? The forming bond pulled tight in her chest, demanding, insistent, sure. But her mind whispered a different truth. Some patterns repeat until you learn to see them. And she needed to know, before she chose, if this was real, or just another lie. She needed to know who Nissa was, and what Caspian had done to her. Seraphine found Morel in the library at dawn. The older woman looked up from her book, took one look at Seraphine's face, and sighed. So Ilara finally used that card. Who was Nissa? Morel closed her book slowly. Sit down. I'd rather stand, then pace, but listen. Morel's expression darkened. Nissa was a low-rank wolf. 3 years ago, Caspian showed interest. The bond began forming. The whole territory watched, Some hopeful, most scandalized. Then 2 weeks later, Nissa disappeared. Found dead in the forest. Officially ruled a rogue attack. Seraphine's stomach dropped. But the timing looked bad, and rumours spread that Caspian had her killed when she became inconvenient, when the bond became a political liability. Morel met her eyes. I don't believe it. Caspian is ruthless, but not cruel. But he never defended himself, never explained. Just let people think what they wanted. Silence can protect or condemn. Sometimes you have to ask directly instead of assuming. Seraphine turned and walked toward the Prime's study. She didn't knock, just pushed open the door. Caspian looked up from his desk, took in her expression, stood. "Did you kill Nissa?" she asked. He didn't flinch, didn't deflect. "No." Then what happened? For a long moment he just looked at her. Then he moved to the window, back to her. But she felt his control fraying. "Nissa was my mate," he said quietly. The bond formed. I was content. For the first time in years, his jaw tightened. Then I found out she was being blackmailed by a rival pack, forced to spy on me, feed them information. Seraphine's breath caught. I confronted her, Caspian continued. Gave her a choice. Trust me, let me protect her, or run. His voice went flat. She ran. The rival pack killed her 3 days later to keep her silent. The pain in his voice was carefully controlled, buried deep, but she heard it. I could have forced her to stay, he said, locked her in the territory, kept her safe. He turned to face her. But that's not safety. That's a cage. So I let her choose, and she chose wrong, and I've lived with that for 3 years. Seraphine processed this. Her mind racing. He'd let someone he cared for walk into danger because he respected her choice. That was either the most honorable thing she'd ever heard or the most terrifying, because it meant he'd let her make the same mistake. He wouldn't save her from herself. If I chose to leave right now, she asked, would you stop me? His eyes held hers. No. Something in her chest cracked open, because that was the difference. Davian had discarded her, thrown her away like trash. Caspian would let her go, respect her choice, even if it destroyed him. But only one of those felt like respect. Only one of those felt like love. I'm not running, she said. He went very still. Seraphine. I'm not running, she repeated, stronger this time. I'm choosing. He crossed to her, slowly, deliberately. Stopped just close enough that she felt his breath against her skin. Then say it, he said, voice low and rough. Choose me, out loud, so there's no doubt. Something inside her screamed, yes. Her body ached for him. The forming bond pulled so tight it hurt, but her voice caught, because saying it out loud made it real, made it a choice she couldn't take back. She looked at him, really looked, saw the control he maintained, the restraint, the patience, saw the fear beneath it all. Fear that she'd run like Nissa. Fear that he'd lose her too. And she realized he was just as terrified as she was. She opened her mouth. I choose you. The words left her lips and the world shifted. I choose you. The bond snapped into place, fully, completely, irreversibly. It wasn't gentle. It was a tidal wave crashing through her chest, a wildfire in her veins. She gasped, stumbled, and Caspian caught her. But it wasn't just sensation, it was emotion. His emotion flooding through the bond. Hunger, raw and desperate, restraint held by a thread. And fear. God, so much fear. Fear of losing her, of failing her, of not being enough. He wasn't just powerful, he was terrified. Of her. Of this, and that made him real. Caspian pulled her to him, not rough but desperate, his control fraying at the edges, his forehead pressed against hers, breath ragged. Once we do this, you're mine, he said, voice rough, fully, permanently. If you have doubts, tell me now. She saw it, the out he was giving her, one last chance to run. But she was done running. I'm sure. He kissed her like he was drowning and she was air. His hands mapped her like territory he'd waited lifetimes to claim. Every touch deliberate, reverent, possessive. She felt the bond solidify. A golden thread weaving through her ribs, anchoring her to him to her, binding them in ways that went beyond flesh. Something in her rose to meet his, not in submission born of defeat, in trust. She surrendered, chose to surrender, and the difference made all the difference. Time blurred, sensation and emotion tangled until she couldn't tell where she ended and he began. When it was over, they lay tangled together in his bed, vulnerable, raw. The bond hummed between them, steady, certain, permanent. Seraphine stared at the ceiling, heart still racing. What if I'm not strong enough for this? The words escaped before she could stop them. For being your mate? Caspian turned to face her. His hand cupped her jaw, thumb brushing her cheek. You survived rejection, he said quietly. Invisibility. Your own pack turning on you. You rebuilt yourself from nothing. You're the strongest person I know. Something in her chest cracked, because she'd spent years thinking strength was endurance, staying when she should leave, surviving when she should fight. But maybe strength was something else. Maybe strength was choosing herself, choosing him, choosing to be seen. Maybe strength was letting someone in, someone who'd earned it. I'm terrified, she whispered. Good. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. So am I. She felt it through the bond, his fear matching hers, his hope matching hers. They lay in silence, wrapped in each other, the bond thrumming between them like a second heartbeat. Then, a knock at the door. Urgent. Insistent. Caspian tensed. What? Morel's voice came through, tight with worry. Caspian, the council. They're calling for an emergency vote. They want Seraphine removed from the territory. Ilara convinced them she's a security risk. The words hit like ice water. Seraphine felt it rise, the familiar terror. Of being discarded, of not being enough, of losing what she just claimed. Caspian sat up. His presence flooded the room, cold, lethal, absolute. Let them try, he said. The bond flared with his rage, protective, possessive, final. He turned to her, eyes burning amber. You're my mate, my equal, and no one, not the council, not Ilara, not anyone, takes what's mine. Seraphine realized with crystal clarity, being chosen by a prime meant being protected, but it also meant being a target. And the war for her place here had just begun. The council chamber was packed, every seat filled, every eye on her. Seraphine stood in the center of the room, hands clasped to keep them from shaking. The council sat in a semicircle, 20 wolves who'd decided her fate before she'd even walked in. Ilara sat among them, smiling. Caspian stood at the far end, jaw tight, presence barely contained. She felt his fury through the bond, hot and protective. The head councilman spoke. Ancient law states, any bond with a prime must be approved by council vote if the mate is below alpha rank. He looked at Seraphine. You have the right to defend your claim. Caspian took a step forward. This is... If I can't earn their respect, Seraphine said, voice steady, I don't deserve to be here. Caspian froze. She felt his conflict through the bond, the desperate need to protect her, to end this with one command. But she also felt the moment he understood, the moment he stepped back, and it nearly killed him. The councilman nodded. Present your case, then. Another council member stood. She has no rank, no family alliances, no skills or contributions to the territory. Ilara rose smoothly, and given her history, publicly rejected, emotionally unstable, she presents a security risk. The prime deserves better. The room murmured agreement. Seraphine felt the old shame rise, the urge to apologize, to shrink. She pushed it down. You're right, she said clearly. I have no rank, but rank is inherited, not earned. I have no family, but I survived without one. She looked around the room. You want to know what I contribute? I see things you don't. She turned to a council member on her left. Councilman Roth, you voted against the border expansion, said it was too costly, but last week you met with merchants from the rival pack who would profit if our expansion failed. You think no one noticed. I did. Roth's face paled. She turned to another. Councilwoman Vera, you proposed new taxes on low-rank families, but your daughter married into one. You're protecting your investment while punishing others in the same position. I noticed. The room went silent. You dismiss me because I'm invisible, Seraphine continued. But that's my advantage. When you're invisible, people forget you're watching. They forget you're listening. They forget you're learning who lies, who's loyal, who's plotting. She turned to face them all. You want to vote on whether I'm worthy. Fine. But ask yourselves, when's the last time any of you actually looked at the people you claim to protect? Her voice didn't waver. I've been here for weeks. Only one person saw me, and that's why he's prime. And you're not. Silence. She felt Caspian through the bond. Pride, desire, absolute certainty that she belonged exactly where she was. The head councilman cleared his throat. All in favor of approving the bond? Hands rose. Not all. But enough. The bond is approved. Seraphine's knees nearly buckled. Ilara's face twisted with rage. The council dismissed. Seraphine made it to a side chamber before collapsing against the wall, shaking. Caspian found her there, pulled her into his arms. You didn't need me, he said quietly. I did. She looked up at him. Just not the way I thought. What way? I needed you to let me fight. Her voice broke. That was the hardest part. He kissed her forehead, held her while the adrenaline drained away. For a moment there was peace. Then a servant burst through the door. Your Majesty, the borders have been breached. Rogue wolves. They know the defences. Caspian went still. It's a distraction. They're already inside. Through the bond, Seraphine felt his battle instincts flare, felt his need to protect her. But she also felt something else rising in her chest. Not fear. Readiness. She'd just proven she belonged here. Now she'd prove she'd fight to stay. Chaos erupted through the castle. Alarms rang, wolves shifted, steel clashed against steel. Caspian mobilized his guards with military precision. Seraphine moved to follow him. A servant grabbed her arm. The safe room, my lady. Now. She pulled free. No. Caspian turned. Seraphine? I'm not decorative, she said. I'm your mate. Where you go, I go. She felt his conflict through the bond, the desperate need to lock her away, keep her safe. But he also felt her determination, her absolute refusal to hide. Caging her would break her. He handed her a blade. Stay close, he said. Don't be a hero. And if I fall, you run. She gripped the blade, met his eyes. If you fall, I fight. They moved through the castle together. Bodies littered the halls, guards, rogues, both. The attackers were organized, too organized. Seraphine watched their patterns as they fought. The rogues avoided certain hallways, ignored specific exits. They knew the layout. Someone inside is helping them, she said. Caspian's jaw tightened. The council chamber. Now. They ran, burst through the doors. Ilara stood in the center of the room, with the rogue leader. A massive wolf, scarred and deadly. Ilara, Caspian growled. She smiled. You chose her, a nobody, over everything I offered. Her voice turned cold. So I'll take what you refuse to give. The rogue leader moved, fast. Caspian met him mid-strike, but the rogue was enhanced, faster, stronger. Steel flashed, blood sprayed. Caspian went down. Seraphine's world narrowed to that single point. Caspian on the ground, clutching his side. The rogue leader advancing. Ilara turned to her. This is where you run, little mouse, or die trying to save him. Seraphine could run, should run, survive. But Caspian was down, and if she ran, he died. The old her would run. The old her survived by being invisible, but she wasn't that person anymore. She'd been chosen, she'd chosen back, and that meant fighting. Seraphine didn't charge, she observed. The rogue leader favoured his left side. Old injury. Ilara positioned herself near the door, escape route ready. Seraphine feinted right. The rogue followed. She dove left, grabbed a chain attached to the chandelier, pulled, crystal and iron crashed down. The rogue dodged, but it bought her seconds. She felt Caspian through the bond, wounded, furious, guiding her. Behind you. 3 steps. Now, she spun, blocked Ilara's strike. You think you can beat me? Ilara hissed. I don't have to beat you, Seraphine said. I just have to survive until help arrives. She used the environment. Overturned furniture created barriers, forced Ilara and the rogue leader to split their focus. The rogue leader lunged. She read his tell, weight shifting right, dodged left. Her blade caught his thigh. Not fatal, but enough. Guards burst through the doors. The rogue leader fled. Ilara tried to follow. Seraphine tripped her, pinned her. It's over, Seraphine said. Ilara laughed bitterly. You think this changes anything? You're still nothing. Maybe, Seraphine said quietly, but I'm nothing who just saved a prime. The guards hauled Ilara away. Seraphine ran to Caspian. Healers swarmed, blood everywhere. Move, she demanded. They rushed him to the medical wing. She followed, refused to leave. Through the bond, she felt him fading. Not dying, but close, too close. You said you don't abandon what's yours, she whispered, gripping his hand. So don't you dare leave me now. The bond flickered, weak, but there, not leaving, resting. You saved me. Her chest cracked open, relief and terror and something fierce crashing together. She had saved him, not because she was strong, but because she chose to, and that choice made all the difference. She held his hand, felt the bond pulse between them, wounded but unbroken. She wasn't just his mate, she was his equal. And she'd earned that, not through status, through choice, through fighting when she could have run, through staying when she could have hidden, through becoming someone worthy not of him but of herself. 3 days later, Caspian was healing. Ilara and her co-conspirators sat in cells beneath the castle. The borders were secured. The council, what remained of it, had pledged loyalty. The territory was safe. But Seraphine couldn't sleep. She stood in the gardens at dawn, the same place Caspian had first led her. The same place everything had begun. You're different, Morel said, appearing beside her. Seraphine smiled faintly. I'm the same, just more. That's what being chosen does, Morel said. It doesn't change you. It reveals you. Seraphine shook her head. No, choosing myself revealed me. Being chosen by him just gave me a reason to try. Morel studied her for a long moment, then smiled. You'll make a good leader. Footsteps behind them. Caspian emerged from the castle, moving slowly, still healing but standing. Morel left without a word. Caspian stopped beside Seraphine. Close enough to touch. The bond hummed between them, steady, certain, permanent. You saved my life, he said quietly. You gave me a reason to. He turned to face her fully. I thought I was choosing you, but you chose me first. When you stayed, when you fought, when you refused to run, you chose me before I earned it. Seraphine looked at him, really looked, saw the scars, physical and otherwise, saw the man beneath the title. Maybe that's what love is, she said softly, choosing before it's earned, trusting before it's proven, and then proving it anyway. He pulled her close, kissed her forehead. The territory gathers today, for you. For me? For your coronation. Her breath caught. Caspian. You're not just my mate, he said. You're my equal, and it's time everyone knew it. The throne room overflowed. Every wolf in the territory, high rank and low, council and common, packed the space. Seraphine stood beside Caspian at the front. She wore a simple dress. No crown yet, no title, just herself. Caspian addressed the crowd. Some of you questioned her worth, her rank, her value. His voice carried, absolute, final. I didn't, and she proved why. Not to me, to herself, and that's the only person she ever needed to prove anything to. He turned to her, lifted a crown, silver and simple, no jewels, nothing ornate. Seraphine Vale, he said, you have earned your place here. Not through blood, not through status, through choice, through courage, through refusing to be anything less than what you are. He placed the crown on her head. The room erupted. Not everyone cheered, but enough did. And Seraphine realized she didn't need everyone's approval. She just needed her own. She looked out at the crowd, saw faces that had dismissed her, ignored her, rejected her, and she felt nothing but peace. Because 8 months ago, she'd been rejected, invisible, broken. She'd thought that was her ending, but it wasn't. It was her beginning. Rejection taught her something acceptance never could. You don't need to be chosen to be valuable. You just need to choose yourself. And then, if someone chooses you back, someone who sees you, respects you, fights alongside you, that's not salvation. That's partnership. And that's worth everything. Caspian took her hand. The bond thrummed between them, strong, permanent, earned. She looked at him. Her prime, her mate, her equal. And she smiled. Not because she was chosen, but because she chose. And that made all the difference. If this journey of rejection, self-worth, and choosing yourself resonated with you, let us know in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, where dark romance meets real emotional growth, where powerful men meet women who refuse to stay broken, where desire is dangerous and restraint is seduction, hit that subscribe button. Because Seraphine's story isn't the only one worth telling. These are tales where attraction is forbidden, where alpha men collide with women they were never meant to want, where the slow burn keeps you listening until the final word. Stories of longing, rejection, and moments when control almost breaks. Stories that unfold at night. Intense tension, unspoken hunger, and emotional power shifts that cut deep. If you're ready for more restraint, more psychological depth, more consequences that matter, we'll see you in the next one. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing isn't falling, it's choosing to fall anyway. See you next time.